Welcome to Zodiac Talks Tarot, where we don't do fortune cookie blurbs, we do clear-eyed stargazing with a dash of psychology, a pinch of Buddhist patience, and just enough humor to keep your cosmic coffee from spilling. Today's focus is Aries in the week of September 29th to October 5th, 2025, a moment that feels less like scrolling and more like the universe quietly sliding a missing puzzle piece into your palm. You've chased answers at sprint speed, but here's the wiser play: recognize that in the year of triumph 2025, endings are disguised doorways, and the so-called chosen ones aren't a secret club, they're simply the people who stop dimming their own light, and that is very Aries when you let it be. Think of the week like a lab where your fire becomes method, no wasted sparks, guided attention. The Vulture's lesson that what you've learned from delays and detours is fuel, not scrap, and while Seven of Cups choice overload can make even a ram want to lie down for a strategic nap, the remedy is not more hustle but sharper seeing, the Buddhist right view that separates shiny distractions from real nourishment. Psychologically, you're leaving the scarcity script of the Five of Pentacles as judgment calls you into a room with better lighting, where your talent is not theoretical and your plan stops wobbling because you finally spot that one practical adjustment you kept overlooking, maybe simplifying an offer, moving your base of operations, or admitting that consistency beats novelty 9 days out of 7. If a risk shows up, and it will, treat it like Saturn's training, not punishment, because growth always feels like a bigger jacket at first, and yes, a Six of Wands pop of recognition can attract side commentary from the cheap seats, but champions don't jog back down the mountain to argue with people who didn't make the hike. In love, the Lover's plus Two of Swords suggests a brave choice that asks you to expand rather than contort, a difference your wiser self already understands, and if your mind spins worst-case scenarios, try the Hangman's trick. Rotate the camera angle until possibility reappears. This week, act as if, not as in pretending, but in aligning. Be the thing before the world updates its file on you. Breathe, choose, move, and let satisfaction be the quiet drum that sets your pace. Let us begin by considering a truth that Aries may not want to hear: nothing is wasted. To the Aries temperament, that statement feels almost like an insult. You are a sign of blazing motion, quick instincts, and a preference for winning the race rather than recycling the scraps. Yet the Vulture, an animal that embodies patience and conservation, flies into your reading this week with an uncomfortable but necessary lesson. The Vulture soars high without frantic effort, circling until the right opportunity presents itself, then descending with precision. There is no flapping about, no wasted calories, no burning down the forest just to roast one rabbit. For Aries, who tends to turn every inconvenience into a battlefield, this reminder is medicine. It says, choose your flames wisely. Not every criticism needs a rebuttal, not every ambition needs to be tackled at once, and not every doubt deserves to sit rent-free in your head. Psychology would call this the discipline of attention. In an age where Uranus in Gemini scatters our focus in 1,000 directions, the danger is not lack of energy but lack of aim. Your mind can wander from grand business schemes to intimate relationship fears to that very modern anxiety about whether artificial intelligence will replace human worth. Yes, even your cards smirked at that one. But here is where Buddhist thought enters the conversation: what you attend to, you become. Place your gaze on scarcity, and you will feel impoverished. Place it on growth, and you will begin to expand. The battlefield, then, is not outside you but within you. The fiercest warrior is not the one who wins every fight but the one who refuses the fights that drain their soul. And yet, this week does not stop at the Vulture's austere wisdom. The Five of Pentacles emerges, signaling that old familiar feeling of being left behind, of missing out, of asking why not me. Aries, you carry a secret competitiveness that often measures your progress against others. Even when you win, you sometimes glance sideways to see who has the bigger trophy. The Five of Pentacles tempts you into that shadow again. But then, like a twist in a novel, the Judgment card follows. Suddenly the story changes. The puzzle piece you could never locate clicks into place. Think of that dream or project you've been shaping for months, perhaps years. It always felt promising but incomplete, like a melody missing its final note. This week the note arrives. It may come through a friend's casual remark, a book you pick up at random, or the clarity that arises when you finally stop overthinking long enough to hear yourself. Whatever the source, the fog lifts. And when it does, Aries, you will remember your nature. You are not built to sit still once the path becomes clear. You are designed to move, to leap, to act. Clarity is your rocket fuel, and when the missing piece falls into your hands, nothing and no one can keep you grounded. The deeper truth is that nothing has been wasted in this process, not the delays, not the false starts, not even the self-doubt. Each step has prepared you for the moment when judgment sounds its trumpet. You may laugh at how long you wrestled with confusion, only to realize the answer was simple all along. That laugh itself is part of the healing, the humor that rescues Aries from taking life too grimly. So embrace it. Recognize that every detour had its purpose, that every moment of lack sharpened your hunger, and that this week, finally, the feast is ready. That is the rhythm of the cards, the Vulture teaching efficiency, the Five of Pentacles revealing old scarcity wounds, and Judgment breaking through with revelation. Nothing wasted, nothing lost, everything folded back into the great design. Aries, your fire is not being asked to burn everything in sight. It is being asked to burn cleanly, wisely, and with direction. And once the missing piece falls into place, the blaze you ignite will not be random but purposeful, lighting a path not only for yourself but, as always, for those bold enough to follow. Clarity, as sweet as it feels, is rarely the final destination. For Aries, it is often just the first spark before the real trial begins. This week, the cards remind you that even when the fog lifts, the road ahead does not automatically become straight. The Seven of Cups appears, shimmering with possibilities, illusions, and more doors than one fiery ram can reasonably kick down at once. This is where the modern world collides with your restless fire. Aries loves momentum, running, charging, pioneering, but the Seven of Cups forces you to pause inside a hall of mirrors. Each mirror reflects a different version of your future. One shows you launching a daring business, another relocating to a city where no one knows your name, another plunging into romance with reckless courage, and yet another choosing silence, retreat, and solitude. The trouble isn't that you lack options, it's that you're spoiled for them. Too much abundance, paradoxically, can feel like famine. Astrology sharpens this picture. Uranus in Gemini is like a cosmic 3D printer of ideas, spitting out version after version of what could be. It's exhilarating, but also exhausting. Psychologists would call it choice overload, the paralysis that comes when you stare too long at a restaurant menu and start envying the person who just ordered a cheeseburger without hesitation. This is the mental trap of the Seven of Cups. Here is where Buddhist wisdom steps in with its quiet authority. The teaching of right view reminds us that not every cup is real. Some are mirages, pretty but hollow. Some contain poison disguised as nectar. Others hold genuine nourishment. Your task is not to grab every vessel and chug until you collapse. Your task is to discern which cup aligns with the deeper currents of your life. Ask yourself, which choice doesn't just feed my ambition, but nourishes my soul? Which option reflects the person I am becoming, not the person I am afraid of being left behind as? This is not easy for Aries, whose impulse is often to leap first and improvise later. But this week, the wisdom lies in measured steps. Think of it like martial arts. Sometimes the strongest strike comes not from constant swinging but from holding, waiting, and releasing at the right moment. And just as you're catching your breath, the Five of Swords arrives. This is the card that whispers, risk is part of the contract. You cannot grow without stretching, without teetering on the edge of what feels unsafe. Saturn enters the conversation here, and Saturn is not a gentle mentor. Too many people misunderstand this planet as punishment, but those who study long enough recognize Saturn as the cosmic coach. Demanding, yes. Stern, absolutely. But always aiming to prepare you for a victory that lasts. When Saturn shifts back into Aries early next year, it won't be offering you candy and trophies, it will be offering you responsibility. Perhaps a relationship that requires maturity instead of infatuation. Perhaps a business that demands discipline rather than raw enthusiasm. Perhaps a transformation of self that insists you finally practice the patience you preach. Psychology tells us the same truth Saturn does: if it feels easy, it's not growth. Growth always feels risky, uncomfortable, and strangely ill-fitting, like wearing a suit one size too big because you're meant to grow into it. And yet, Aries, risk is your native element. You were not designed for the padded walls of safety. You were made for the frontier, for the experiment, for the attempt that others deem impossible. The Five of Swords asks bluntly, are you willing to step into the arena even when you can't guarantee applause? As if to emphasize the urgency, the Judgment card appears not once, but twice. That repetition is not coincidence, it's a cosmic alarm bell, ringing loudly so you cannot roll over and hit snooze. In the image of the card, figures rise from coffins, leaving behind the stale air of old lives. That's you. This week is not about minor adjustments, it's about deciding whether you will remain in the coffin of yesterday's limitations or rise into tomorrow's calling. Here is where Aries' character becomes both a blessing and a challenge. You don't do lukewarm. You don't do half measures. When you commit, you throw your whole being into it, and when you refuse, you shut the door without looking back. Judgment asks, will you answer your true call? Not the one society scripted for you, not the one family or culture guilted you into, but the authentic call of your spirit? This is why the reading began with act as if. To live as though you already are the thing you're striving toward is not delusion. It is alignment. It is faith in action. Imagine the actor rehearsing lines until they cease to feel like performance and become muscle memory. That is what you are being asked to do. Rehearse your future until it becomes your present. So yes, the Seven of Cups will test your discernment with its buffet of shiny distractions. Yes, Saturn through the Five of Swords will push you into risks that make your knees shake. And yes, Judgment will blare its trumpet twice, leaving you no excuse to keep sleeping through your own destiny. The path is not simple, but it is unmistakably yours. And Aries, the moment you stop scattering your fire across every option, the moment you channel it into the calling that makes your heart pound with recognition, that is the moment nothing can stop you. Reframing, Aries, is not just a clever trick of the mind, it is a spiritual practice, an art form that belongs as much to philosophers as it does to psychologists, and perhaps even to poets. When the card of reframing appears, it's the universe inviting you to step back from the picture you've been staring at for too long and notice that the frame itself has been distorting the image. You may have seen yourself as unlucky, perpetually behind, or somehow excluded from the banquet of life. That's one frame, and it's a familiar one to many of us. But what if you shifted it? What if you began to see every delay not as punishment but as preparation? Every setback not as a verdict but as a training ground for patience? What if you dared to say, nothing is wasted? That is not just positive thinking, that is wisdom. This is precisely where the chosen ones stand apart. They don't pretend hardship doesn't exist. They experience the same frustrations, heartbreaks, and missed chances as everyone else. The difference is that they refuse to let difficulty be the author of their story. They write their own chapters. They understand that their role is not to fit neatly into the world's expectations but to stand out, even if their brightness unsettles those around them. In fact, the true chosen ones know that making others uncomfortable is often a sign they are doing their job. Aries, your cosmic assignment is not to blend in, it never has been. You were made to blaze, to cut new paths, to provoke a little envy and, yes, sometimes resistance, simply by being unapologetically yourself. Which brings us to the Six of Wands. This card is the tarot's version of a victory lap. It announces recognition, momentum, even applause. Yet, as always in life, success has a shadow, jealousy. Picture this: you climb the mountain, sweat dripping, lungs burning, and finally you reach the summit. You take in the view, a panorama of effort turned into triumph. And then, from far below, a voice shouts, "Well, the view isn't even that great." Aries, are you going to climb all the way back down just to debate that critic? Of course not. Let them stew in the valley. Your task is to breathe the mountain air and enjoy the horizon you earned. Humor is your shield here. The jealous will grumble. They always do. But jealousy is powerless unless you feed it. The only time a hater can sting is when you secretly doubt yourself. If your results speak, if your actions align with your vision, then there is no need to explain or defend. Success, like sunlight, doesn't argue with shadows, it simply shines until the darkness has no choice but to recede. Yet success is not the only theme this week. The Seven of Pentacles asks you a more sobering question: is the juice worth the squeeze? This is not just about your finances, though money may be part of it. It's about all forms of investment: your time, your emotions, your creativity. Some of what you've been nurturing is blooming beautifully. But if you're honest, some branches are withering, some projects are draining you more than they reward you. Saturn, the great cosmic coach, calls you to a pruning season. Have the courage to cut back what no longer bears fruit. Here's where psychology enters with a sharp but necessary insight. People often struggle to let go not because they love the thing itself but because they fear the silence and emptiness that follows. A relationship, a job, a habit, even if it no longer gives life, they cling to it because the void feels terrifying. Aries, don't fall into that trap. In Buddhist teaching, emptiness is not barren, it is fertile. The empty space is sacred, it is the ground from which new growth can emerge. Without space, the new cannot arrive. Without pruning, the tree cannot thrive. So this week's message is threefold: reframe your story, embrace recognition without descending to fight the critics, and prune what no longer serves you. Taken together, these cards weave a narrative that is both challenging and deeply liberating. You are not being asked to sprint without direction, but to walk with clarity. You are not being asked to silence the voices of others, but to outgrow them. And you are not being asked to clutch every branch, but to release some so that the whole tree of your life can stand taller. Aries, laugh at the critics, cherish the applause, and above all, honor the sacred art of reframing. Because the truth is this: you are not behind, not broken, not wasted. You are exactly where you need to be, and the space you clear today will be the soil of your triumph tomorrow. Momentum is a curious thing, Aries. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or trumpets, it builds quietly, like water gathering behind a dam, and then suddenly it rushes forward, sweeping away hesitation. That's the energy of the magician in your spread this week. To draw the magician is to receive confirmation from the universe that reinvention is not only possible, it's already underway. The magician stands before his table with all the tools of the tarot: the cup of feeling, the sword of thought, the wand of fire, the pentacle of earth. He doesn't beg for new resources. He doesn't wait for someone to tap him on the shoulder and declare him ready. He claims what is already in front of him and says, "I already have what I need." And Aries, so do you. Remember that first message of the week, act as if. The magician embodies this law. He doesn't audition for his own role, he simply steps onto the stage and begins. There's something almost reckless about it, but it's the kind of recklessness that changes lives. For Aries, this is not unfamiliar territory. You've always been the pioneer, the one who charges ahead even when the map is still half drawn. This week, the cards tell you to embrace that side of yourself fully. Step into the fire, claim your tools, and don't apologize for wanting more than the ordinary. Now, let's talk about love because the Lover's card has made its appearance, paired with the Two of Swords. This combination speaks of hesitation, of choice, of fear. Some of you may feel a connection approaching that is both magnetic and intimidating, the kind that makes you wonder if you're truly ready. The temptation might be to rationalize it away, to retreat, to say, not now, maybe later. But let me remind you, love, in its truest form, doesn't ask you to compromise your essence. It asks you to grow into a fuller version of yourself. That's not sacrifice, it's evolution. Psychologists might call it adaptive growth. Novelists might describe it as the kind of love that stretches your character arc. And a Buddhist might remind you that relationships are one of life's greatest teachers, shaping the self not by erasing it, but by refining it. So if someone arrives who stirs your courage rather than your fear, don't dismiss it too quickly. These meetings are not accidents. They're invitations to expansion. Moving beyond love, let's turn to what I call the good stuff. Two oracle cards came through here, beyond the ordinary and a deep breath. Together, they remind you of something essential. Aries, you were never meant to live a life that blends into the wallpaper. Normal was never your assignment. You're wired for the extraordinary, and your path will always look different from the one most people walk. But here's the caveat: you must learn to breathe. A deep breath slows the Aries impulse to sprint blindly into every new adventure. This week is not about frantic energy, it's about deliberate power. The Eight of Cups confirms that you're walking away from what no longer serves you. And while walking away often stirs grief, in this case it looks like liberation. You're not abandoning yourself, you're refusing to settle. The King of Cups then arrives, offering emotional stability whether in your own heart or in the presence of someone who can steady you. Consider it a reminder that true strength doesn't come from constant battle but from inner balance. Of course, the human condition is never without friction. There may be doubters, haters, even loved ones who don't fully understand your choices. But here is the paradox: dissatisfaction is often the seed of transformation. To feel restless is to recognize you are capable of more. To feel unsupported is to remember that your path is yours alone. Don't let that dissatisfaction break you. Let it sharpen you. Let it be the fire that forges your steel. And now we arrive at the conclusion, the heart of the matter. Aries, the week of September 29th to October 5th is not about minor wins or small gestures. It is about discovery, reframing, and claiming the missing piece of your life's puzzle. The Judgment card appeared twice in your spread, and that is not coincidence. The universe is not whispering to you. It is calling loudly, urgently. Answer it. Step out of the coffin of your old identity. Leave behind the chapters that no longer reflect who you are. Step into the life that has been waiting patiently for you. This is your moment. This is the year of triumph 2025. And for those Aries who are the chosen ones, who dare to act as if before the world believes, the rewards will be both external and internal. Outwardly, success, recognition, and opportunities will come. Inwardly, you'll taste the peace that only arrives when you stop resisting your own power. And yes, there will be laughter too, the kind of laughter that comes when you look back at all the hesitation, the endless what-ifs, and realize it was never as frightening as your mind made it out to be. So here is my closing encouragement: Claim your new life, Aries, but don't forget to savor it. Enjoy the view from the mountain you've worked so hard to climb. Dance a little, laugh a little louder, share your fire without apology. This life is not meant to be endured, it is meant to be lived, fully, fiercely, joyfully. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to carry it forward. Like, share, and subscribe to Zodiac Talks Tarot. Let's continue this journey together, exploring the wisdom of the stars with depth, humor, and heart. Aries, the fire is yours, use it wisely, and enjoy the warmth it brings not just to you, but to everyone fortunate enough to stand in its glow.